Listen, call them what you want. Knee knockers, golden nuggets, thigh slappers, etc. But our friends at Manscaped refer to them as the boys. Now, not every man has children, including me unless you count my cats, and, well, I always do. But every man is responsible for their 2 boys below the waist. When your little guys have more hair than they need, like my cats, trust Manscaped for all your grooming dreams. Boys need love too, that's what I always say. So join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com and use code PRETTYDARK for 20% off plus free shipping. You heard it here first, folks. The boys are back in town. I got my first Manscaped back in 2020, and let me tell you, it got me through those hard times. Just me, my lawnmower 3.0, my cats, a bottle of whiskey. You get the idea. A lot of nude gardening. But none of that would have been possible without the confidence that comes with Manscaped. And I haven't been the same since. The lawnmower family now includes the Lawnmower 3.0 Plus, the 4.0 Pro, and the 5.0 Ultra, which helps reduce nicks, ingrown hairs, and other grooming accidents. Yeesh. Yep, 3 ball trimmers. You better believe it. That's 3 trimmers, not 3 balls. What do you think this is? Some kind of sideshow act? Get out of here! Boys need love too, and for this reason, each trimmer is equipped with skin-safe technology, an LED spotlight so you can shave in the dark, and unique features for different grooming needs. But I gotta say it, skin-safe technology does not guarantee cut protection, don't be an idiot. But you can shave in the shower, or take it outside to shave during a summer afternoon thunderstorm, because these babies are waterproof. Summer vacay coming up? Manscaped has got you covered. These trimmers come with a travel case and even a travel lock feature to avoid any accidental powering and all those weird looks in the airport. Have you ever even seen Fight Club? 9 times out of 10, it's an electric razor, but every once in a while, it's a Manscaped lawnmower. Always imply ownership in the event of a ball trimmer. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code PRETTYDARK at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code PRETTYDARK at manscaped.com. For the best your boys have ever looked. Trust Manscaped.
You're listening to That's Pretty Dark,
the podcast where we talk about all of the entertainment that scared us as children
and still haunts us as adults. So grab your flashlight and join us as we take a frightfully nostalgic look over our shoulders
and under our beds
and in our closets.
And together we'll realize, whoa, that's pretty dark.
Pretty dark.
Oh, good summer sound. Incoming.
Good summer sound. You know what else is good summer sounds?
What?
The thunder booming outside my house right now.
Absolutely. Me too.
Can you hear it at your house yet?
I do. Oh, yeah. It's
Dude,
thundering here too.
It's wild.
This is
You said you were going to go take your trash out earlier. And I was like, hurry up. Because the storms are coming.
In just a second, it's going to be
It was like
down.
buckets of water were falling down at my house. And when I went to go turn my air down just now to record, there is a poor woman across the street delivering my neighbor's groceries.
Oh.
And she's going back and forth from her car.
In the rain.
In the rain.
Oh, no. It's not raining here yet. I hate that. I hate to see it. Anytime I see somebody walking in the rain, there's a melancholy element.
Well, sure. I don't know.
To it.
I mean, I love walking in the rain. It's one of my favorite things.
Same. But I don't mind it for myself, but I feel bad when I see other people.
For other people?
struggling in it. Granted, walking in the rain isn't so bad, but like doing a task such as, delivering groceries, that's not ideal.
Do you ever feel nostalgic for running errands in the rain?
Yeah.
I oddly love that.
Yeah, me too.
Why,
running errands in the rain is a good time. Like, even if you're like, you have on like a rain jacket, you get in the car, there's like rain, or you like roll down the window for something, there's rain in the car. I don't know. There is something nice.
Doing things in the rain. I love it. It is raining right now, and it's the perfect vibe for this episode. I really wish there'd been any storm whatsoever in this Are You Afraid of the Dark?
You just needed some of those like thunderclaps happening ominously behind
honestly,
it.
just like with the whole vibe and everything, we're going to get to it.
Hey guys, my name is Kaylin.
And my name is Christian.
And you're listening to That's Pretty Dark.
I will say I'm really enjoying everybody really getting into the summer ween this year.
Summerween
Have you
is a
seen
good
any of
vibe.
that stuff?
Yeah.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Everybody's having like spooky barbecues and
It's
watching
the
like
best because
scary
it just
summer
means that
themed
Halloween
movies.
begins earlier and earlier every year.
Yeah,
We kind of talked about
it's already
this,
here.
I think, last time a little bit, that it's right around the corner. But
Yeah.
with Summerween, it could be right now.
I'm so nostalgic for last summer, all like the horror films I watched and everything. And it feels pretty serendipitous to me that this is the episode we happen to be covering right now for many, many reasons that I will address tonight.
You know me and serendipity.
I really hope that it blows your mind as much as it blew mine.
I'm so excited.
When I started putting some stuff together. But what's better than like monster movie Fright Nights, creature features at the local movie theater?
I know.
On a warm summer evening, we got nothing to do, nowhere to be, but the movies. Getting spooked to the max.
Love it.
Tonight, guys, we're stepping into one of the most nightmarishly memorable episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Another phobia-developing episode, according to one Reddit user, that DJ McHale himself has claimed to be his own personal favorite of the series.
And I can understand that.
I can understand why. This is Season 2, Episode 2, The Tale of the Midnight Madness, which premiered on June 26th, 1993.
Today's date is June 26th. We're recording
That's
this
right.
on June 26th. And honestly, we were supposed to record it or considering recording it on June 25th. So
I mean, days ago,
Yeah.
honestly.
Well,
The
yeah,
summer
or
solstice.
before.
Like,
we've been really cutting it down to the wire, but I'm going to say this time I don't mind because that's so fun. Today's the actual anniversary.
when you asked me yesterday, you were like, are we recording tonight? I was like, well, it might be tomorrow.
You had it planned all along.
I literally couldn't have yesterday. I finished polishing this script at 6 a.m.
Oh,
I saw the sun come up. I was a real vampire. I was a real Nosferatu.
Knowing you and your penchant for the timing of things,
I wanted
think
to spontaneously combust.
You wanted that to happen.
No, I didn't want it to happen. I wanted to die. So many threads being woven, so many dots being connected. But that's not the only reason why June 26th is a very significant date. So, stand by.
It's my parents' wedding anniversary.
Well, I didn't know that either.
So I wouldn't exist if it weren't for June 26th.
That's today? So are they doing something fun tonight?
I don't know. I think they're just going to church, hanging out.
Hey, what's more fun than that?
What is more fun than that?
Yeah. While the
Your face.
parents are at church, sometimes really bad things happen.
Oh no. What's the you're
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
I can't tell if you want me to guess.
No, you can't.
Because you think I can guess?
You can't guess. There's no way. There's no
All
way.
right.
We'll come back to it, you guys.
They hate us.
You guys
You can't
just put a
tease
pin in
people
it.
like this. We've learned.
This episode was written and directed by DJ McHale, although the writing credit was given to his feminine alter ego, Chloe Brown.
Mm.
And also, isn't it his canine alter ego? Wasn't his dog's
I believe
name
so,
Chloe?
yeah. I think I've seen that somewhere.
I remembered that. Yeah,
Stop us,
earlier.
DJ, if we're speaking out of turn.
I'm sure he has so many things to correct this name. Funny. The IMDb summary. Dr. Vink helps an old movie theater in danger of closing by showing a special version of the vampire classic Nosferatu, 1922. My summary is much more long-winded.
Good.
When a beloved classic movie theater is in danger of closing its doors for good, the ever-mysterious and macabre Dr. Vink appears once again to strike a bargain with the theater manager. That is, to show a silent movie he made many years ago, which turns out to be an Are You Afraid of the Dark universe version of the 1922 vampire film Nosferatu.
There it is.
When the manager reneges on the deal and refuses to give Dr. Vink what he asked for in return, the literal lines between reality and horror blur when the vampire escapes from the black and white projector screen and begins stalking the theater employees in full color. And this is such a fucking badass concept.
It is.
Is it not so cool?
And the special effects are also badass.
Oh, yeah, dude. It's so well put together, and the execution holds up to the concept. Usually the concepts for these episodes are so much greater than the execution.
There's a gap between what was possible and what was intended.
Yeah.
And we can always see what was intended.
Right, yeah. You can always imagine or envision what could have been.
There's a scale of how close they got. But this time, I think that they went there. All the way there.
They matched up. And that's why this episode is so memorable and so freaking scary. Fun fact, though. The theater in question, the Rialto, was based on a theater that DJ went to growing up, where I hope and choose to believe that he attended many a monster movie showing.
Fright Night.
Fright Night.
The Rialto is also the name of the theater in Dawson's Creek.
Is it?
It's a common theater name.
I'm sure there are many.
I wondered if you would look up, or if you looked up any facts about that, because it's a very, very common name of a theater.
I didn't see specifically. I was more interested in like where they may have filmed it.
Yeah. Also interested in that.
So I didn't see anything specifically. I feel like the interior was probably a soundstage and the exterior was just a theater. But it did look like the name Rialto was in lights above the theater. So I don't really know.
I just looked it up.
Well, there you go. Tell me.
We're doing live Googling on That's Pretty Dark right now.
We're doing it live!
What I'm seeing on Google is the history of a specific Rialto theater, but the paragraph says, like all Rialtos, there are many worldwide. The name harkens to a medieval covered bridge in Venice, around which novelty shops were built, providing a de facto entertainment district when no such thing existed.
Wow. Well, that's pretty neat.
I like that.
That's really cool.
That is fun. And yes, the first thing I thought of was Dawson's Creek, but now I actually know where it comes from. So
I should have known that. Good thing there's two of us running this show. Wow.
I love an old theater.
Yeah.
There is almost nothing in the world that I love more than an old theater, whether it's a movie theater or like a playhouse, what have you.
Right.
I love a theater. I even went to a bookstore that was in an old theater in LA once upon a time, and I still dream about that place because it merged the idea of a bookstore with what had been an ongoing theater for decades, I guess. And I love that it was all together in one place.
That's awesome.
And I'm into it.
Yeah. I mean, a bookstore and anything I'm already in love with.
Right.
Like bookstore combo, anything. I'm down. When the episode begins, as usual, the Midnight Society is arriving at the clearing to settle in around the campfire. Gary and Betty Ann are already there together. And I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but they arrived late together last time.
Ooh.
What did I say in season 1? Gary and Betty Ann belong together.
There are.
Prove me wrong.
No, I ship it. We've decided that we ship it. And there are there's a vibe.
It's a term I haven't heard in a while. Yes, I ship Gary and Betty Ann. Love those two kids.
Me too.
Kiki and David are in a hurry to get started.
What's the rush? Fright Night at the Majestic Theater. Gorama, triple feature marathon. We got free passes.
Cool. What's playing?
Who cares? Let's go.
Two things here. One, why didn't you invite us, guys?
Yeah.
Why did none of us know about this?
I was right here.
Yeah, like seriously, waiting for this every day of my life. I want to go.
It's like your letter from Hogwarts, but instead it's an invitation to Fright Night.
It's just an invitation to the local theater, right? 2, I also think I was right last season that Gary has spent a lot of time by himself watching old horror films.
Yes.
I picture a dusty attic, dad's old projector, a sheet hung up on the wall. So I don't think it really matters what's playing anyway because Gary's already seen it.
That's a good point.
My only question is, why doesn't tonight's tale belong to Gary?
Good question.
I think the answer to that probably lies with the appearance of the familiar Dr. Vink, which, if we remember from the tale The Phantom Cab, is a character invented by Frank.
Yeah.
So it must be Frank's story.
I've been to Fright Night, and I'm never going back. Because you sit in that movie theater for so long, you start to forget that the real world even exists. The only thing that seems real is the horror movie up on the screen. You know when you get really scared, you can always tell yourself that it's just a movie. But sometimes a movie seems so real that it's hard to tell the difference between what's make-believe and what's really there.
And I'm immediately called back to The Final Wish.
Exactly. This gave me Final Wish Sandman vibes.
We are
because
doing the same thing.
Almost the exact same intro.
Almost the same intro. But I still love it because it's setting up this season for all of the different forms that fiction can take.
Yes.
And how it can impact our lives.
Right.
Whether it's make-believe or not. And I think it's great. I'm still very much down and very much in.
I'm very into this.
It doesn't even matter that it's so close.
It's almost like this season has its own theme. Like overarching theme so far.
Yeah.
Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society. I call this story The Tale of the Midnight Madness.
Coffee mate. Sparkle sound effect.
We open on the Rialto, an old-fashioned movie theater with its marquee promoting a fictional film called The Bostics of Beacon Hill.
Mm-hmm.
DJ must have a thing for the last name Bostic.
I guess so.
This is the second time he's used it in the show.
Yeah.
The first was in Twisted Claw.
I wondered if there was any type of real title.
Not a real
That's
movie.
just his own little insert.
Yeah.
Okay, Chloe.
Yeah. But I think that the movie audio we hear is real because it has that old Hollywood movie sound.
I wanted to show you the view. It's lovely.
I wasn't able to figure out which movie it was. I even Googled it, but it sounds like a welcome conclusion to a sleepy 1940s romance.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one audience member, an elderly woman we encounter multiple times. But the actress isn't given credit for the role, so I'm not sure who she is. And sitting alone in the theater, she applauds without enthusiasm as the movie comes to an end.
Oh, enjoy the film, man? Everybody's a critic.
Let's go. This place is depressing.
I gotta clean the house first.
Hurt by her displeasure is Pete, a young theater employee who cares so much about keeping the Rialto in business that he buys concessions on his shift to keep up the appearance of revenue flow.
Oh, it hurt my heart. I'm a Pete.
Poor kid.
I am a Pete, you know?
He continues to perform his usual shift duties no matter how negligible, sweeping the aisles and picking up the trash almost like some kind of chaos magic ritual, manifested by going through the motions of a successful business. It's pretty apotropaic, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many times do we as humans keep up our routines and go through the motions of things? Like, even though the
Constantly,
world feels like it's burning around us, or maybe because it feels like it's burning.
Yep. That's the only way we can keep it together.
Right.
Is abiding that routine.
Right. It's like
those motions, however mundane.
Like holding on to that sense of normalcy.
Been there.
Like if I pretend like everything's fine, maybe it actually is.
$6? Friday's supposed to be a good night.
$6 is a good night.
Pete's companions are his flippant co-worker Katie, who couldn't care less about the job, and Mr. Christoph, the embittered manager of the Rialto, who seems to blame its failures on Pete and Katie. Did I say Kate earlier?
You did.
It's Katie. I'm going to say Kate a lot.
I'm not going to say that they don't say Kate at least once, but Kate could be a nickname for Katie or vice versa.
Sure. It's either like Pete and Kate or Petey and Katie. And I have a hard time doing,
If you guys hear him say Petey, just let it slide.
Let it go. Just let it go.
It's another Dawson's Creek reference. That's all.
I don't get the reference.
You would have had to watch it all the way through, probably.
I've never even seen one episode. But Christoph blaming these children bothers me every time I watch it. But I think what's happening is like a distillation of the circumstances into a classic bully dichotomy. The owners are giving him grief, so he's turning around and giving them grief. Mm-hmm. It just never made sense to me why he would blame them. They just work there. But right. I think that's what's happening.
This is how it works down the pipeline,
Yeah.
The frustration of his boss carries over to this boss, carries down to the worker bee.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But to break down Christoph further, he's a real pain in the ass, but he is having a genuinely difficult time with the theater failing. That each time we encounter him, there's a really good chance he's drunk.
Yes.
We literally see him hitting his flask in a cut sequence. So we know he sits up in his office.
I wrote that down too.
By himself.
That's pretty dark. I mean,
yeah, for a kid show.
He is going through it.
He's sitting up in his office,
I understand.
drinking away the bad feelings and pretending he's not at work.
Mm-hmm.
So when he has to come back down to do something, he treats his employees like shit.
Yep.
It's real.
I also love
it's a real thing.
It is. Oh, it's very
feels
real.
Very real.
I also love how the kids know the lore of the theater. Like Pete knew how to open the old cash register, even though Christoph didn't. Like they know the tricks. They know how to wiggle the lock just right. Like they know all the stuff. And I think that's fun.
Yeah,
too.
it shows their level of care and attention to the place. And their willingness to do something about saving it, whereas Christoph just wants to complain.
Yeah. I think that was a really smart device for them to show. They there was exposition. We heard it said, but the way that Pete cares about the place in those little tiny actions is really nice.
It is really nice. And it's also that same kids are smart and adults are dumb.
The kids know what's going on.
Kind of approach to entertainment from this time.
The kids are tuned into something that the grown-ups are too jaded to tune into.
It's a certain magic you lose when you get older.
We can keep it alive. That's what we're doing right now.
Doing our best. But I do want to point out the movie posters in Christoph's office.
Oh, yeah.
This Island Earth from 1955, and It Came from Outer Space, 1953, which I just said recently. I discovered that Ray Bradbury wrote the thesis, not the thesis, the treatment for that.
The thesis.
I've actually read a couple different theses.
He wrote the academic paper that the film was based on.
I've read a few of those this week and for research.
Me too, actually.
And so I've been thinking of the word thesis. Well, Pete is played by a guy named Eddie Robinson. He appeared on The Cosby Show and Ghost Rider. He played Chet in Lone Star from 1996 and the character Steve Trayer in a movie called Followers from the year 2000. Eddie's most substantial credit is playing Neil Atwater in 51 episodes of Swan's Crossing.
Ah.
You ever heard of that?
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
It basically sounds like an early 90s version of Gossip Girl.
Oh, then that makes me want to watch it.
Yeah, it starred a young Sarah Michelle Gellar and was produced by DJ's pal and co-producer of Are You Afraid of the Dark, Ned Candle.
Ned Candle?
Yeah.
No way. Okay, then I need to watch it.
Mr. Kristoff was played by Harry Stanjovsky. He returns later as Phil in The Tale of the Wisdom Glass in season 6. His series acting credits include Mystery Files of Shelby Woo, Big Wolf on Campus, Ripley's Believe It or Not. He voice acted in 26 episodes as Brother Tuck in Young Robin Hood.
Brother Tuck.
Arthur, Country Mouse, and City Mouse. He's also well known for contributing his voice to video game franchises such as Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, and my personal favorite, Splinter Cell.
Nice.
He has so many more credits, but his most notable films are The Aviator, X-Men, Days of Future Past, Pieces of a Woman, and Beau is Afraid. So he's done well.
Yeah.
He's done very well for himself. Katie is played by Melanie Weisenthal, and this is her only credit on IMDb.
Oh,
I thought she did a great job.
She did.
I think she could have kept going. I wonder what
Me
happened.
too.
Well, much to Kaylin's enjoyment, I'm sure, Pete and Katie like each other.
Oh, yeah. It was great. I loved it.
There's a running gag the whole time about how Pete keeps trying to ask her out. But external factors keep them from getting together.
It's such a classic 90s thing. It's in everything. It's such a cliche trope. And I will eat it up every single time. I love it.
And they eventually get together at the worst possible moment. Believe me, I'm familiar.
Oh, me too.
Their romance does nothing for me, I have to admit.
Oh, come on.
I'm kinda, but not really surprised Frank would even include it. But what I do enjoy is their friendship and their clever one-liners.
This place would fall apart without you.
Well, it's falling apart anyway.
And later, when Pete almost locks Katie out, she says,
Yeah, well, don't bother. No one comes in when we're open.
And look, guys, I'm all about saving the Rialto, but not if it means reusing popcorn buckets. I'm angry about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
And I'm mad at DJ for making me wonder if my popcorn buckets are clean at the movie theater.
The health inspector would shut him down on the basis of that alone. So
I hope
it's probably
so.
not a great move.
What I'm not mad about is all the very good ideas that Pete has to help save the Rialto.
Pete couldn't stand to see the Rialto die, so he started a campaign to keep it open.
Not only does he take it upon himself to stand out in the cold in a Canadian winter and hand out flyers to passersby on the street, begging them to save the Rialto, see a movie the old-fashioned way.
I love it.
But he also tells Katie that he talked with the zoning commission about getting landmark status for the Rialto.
Yeah.
That's pretty smart.
Very smart.
I'm impressed with the amount of realism that DJ brought to this episode, through ways like this.
Because
through
I think
showing the manager drinking on his shift.
Right.
There's a lot to this that feels very genuine.
I think there's a little bit of a, there's an undertone of kids can make a difference.
Yeah.
And that was something that was big on Nickelodeon at the time as well.
Right. I actually wrote down, in a strange way, it's like showing kids that if they do want to do something important and big and real like this, that there are avenues they can take. It may be difficult. It may take a lot of time, but it is possible to make a difference if you really, really want to.
Yep.
But more importantly, they better pray to God himself that a supernatural entity that takes the appearance of Aaron Tager and calls itself Dr. Vink doesn't walk through their front door and make them an offer they can't refuse.
Literally can't refuse.
Because that's exactly what happens here. Thanks to Pete's flyers posted up around town. A very singular personality waltzes up to their locked double doors and tries to force the doors open.
We're not open for an hour.
But this doesn't deter the stranger, who continues to rattle the door without speaking, like some unimaginable horror told of by Alvin Schwartz.
Yo, come back in an hour!
The thumb turn unlocks itself, and the double doors swing wide open to reveal a man intricately dressed in a three-piece suit, a Victorian cloak, and a fedora.
Who are you?
This is, of course, none other than Dr. Vink, returned once again to keep us awake at night.
He's a mad scientist. He's a entrepreneur. He's a filmmaker. He does it all.
What can he not do? More on that later. But before we continue, I do want to quickly point out how impressive it was when Pete leaps over the counter and doesn't knock off that stack of flyers.
You know,
did you notice that?
Where did I write it down? It's in my notes too. That move of like sliding over the counter is so smooth and so
It's
like
so spry.
Yeah, suave. Like anytime somebody has to hop over a counter, it happens. I'm thinking, what am I thinking of? Maybe like Stranger Things.
I'm sure it happens there too.
That when they're at like the video store, the ice cream shop or something, like
Steve the Hare.
Anytime anybody has to hop over a counter, I'm kind of like, ooh, that kind of does it for me, you know? Because I know I wouldn't be that. Christian's drinking body armor and almost spit it out.
This is a child. This is a
no.
a
I'm
young
not saying
teenage
that,
boy.
I'm saying that action is very like they have it together to be able to do that.
I was trying to like even see if he stepped up on a stool or something to make that easier. I don't know. I think he just,
honestly though, but when you're that young, like when I was that age, I could have done it.
I could
like,
do it
when
when I
you're
was
that young,
younger.
you just kind of hop around all the time anyway.
I haven't been that spry in years.
Vink's the name. Dr. Vink.
Dr. Fink?
Vink with a verb.
Although Vink is played by the same actor, Aaron Taker, and is clearly the same character, he's really very different from before.
Mm-hmm.
He has less of a chaotic mad scientist vibe, and more so the qualities of an unhinged yet discerning gentleman, with a clear sense of injustice regarding the passing of time, and bitterness toward the increasingly superficial existence of modern society. I couldn't agree with him more.
And supposedly, whether it's magic or not, the ability to make a film, which we know is not easy to do if you're scattered and mad scientist like in any fashion.
He talks like he did it by himself, which he probably did because...
Wrote and directed by Dr. Vink. Written and directed.
I'm sure it is some level of magic. But I was tempted to categorize him as an anti-villain almost, but I don't think he deserves that much grace.
Nah.
His tactics are quite despicable.
Quite villainous.
But I do want to point out that he also has more of that pseudo-British affect that usually accompanies these more theatrical types. But I thought his performance was just a lot stronger. I thought he knew a lot more what he was doing with it than
I think, he found it here.
The first time.
It's a little closer to home for him, maybe.
I think so.
Mr. Tager.
And to keep up with another running gag, Katie calls Vink a nutbag, which he resents and later refutes.
And I am not a nutbag.
He says, I'm not a nutbag, I'm a filmmaker, which in my notes I wrote, same difference, but...
Same difference! This time Dr. Vink comes not with a riddle to solve, but a proposition to help save the Rialto.
I've come to save your theater. And it won't cost you a dime. I am a filmmaker. At least I used to be. Back when theaters like this were commonplace. Back before wide screens, before color, before sound. Back when films tried to stir the imagination, not bludgeon it.
And his films used to be quite popular. They always had a certain magic. While explaining all of this, Vink uses his vintage cloak like a magician's cape to transform his fedora into an old film reel canister.
A film I made many years ago. A horror film.
Really?
A vampire film, to be precise. It's quite unique, for in my story, the vampire wins.
All parties are present for this display of both lamentation and grandiosity, including Christoph. And this is when Dr. Vink presents the bargain he wishes to strike.
I make you a promise. Show my film in your theater, and people will flock to see it. Your fortunes will turn, and you'll make far more than $6 a night. All I ask is that once your success is assured, you give me one night a week of your choosing to show my other films to the public.
This film can do as you say. I'll give you 3 nights plus a cut of the vending.
I don't want your popcorn money.
And Christoph doesn't believe for 1 second that it's going to work, so he shakes on the deal, because what does he have to lose?
It's going down, and he's going down with the ship.
And just like that, Vink practically vanishes before their very eyes.
They also ask him, just this mysterious character that's showing up with all of these ideas and ideals, they ask him how old he is, and he says old enough to know that things have changed.
Right.
As am I.
That stuck with me.
That stuck with me too.
I felt like that revealed a lot about his intentions and his character.
Mm-hmm.
It helped me kind of sympathize almost with him.
Because he's just trying to take us back to a time that was simpler. And again, his, quote about imagination.
Yeah.
He feels like we've lost something that he'd like to get back. And who among us millennials can't relate to that sentiment now in the year of our Lord 2024?
But it's like, that's where I feel like that's giving him too much grace, because that seems to be what he wants. But like any good villain, he's so angry about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's going
that his means to getting
he's
it
going to
harmful.
take it out on the people who honestly are the only ones who understand.
Right.
Misguided.
That's a very good point too. Like, these people are the ones keeping alive this old theater for
anger.
the same, or at least especially Pete, for the same reasons that he seems to want to save it with them.
Right.
So they could all be on the same side. They have the same goal in mind. They're just going about it in very different ways.
And he's too blinded.
And of course, there's some dark magic involved.
Of course, there's always dark magic. That just kind of shows me the level of his own personal insanity keeps him from really being able to see a logical course of action. Like, he knows the outcome and he chooses to take that path anyway. Mm-hmm. It's just really interesting. Honestly, you could probably write an entire thesis on Dr. Vink and really, really dive into his motivation and the complexity of his character. I still believe that he should be the primary antagonist of the entire series, but that may just be me.
People love Vink.
Well, Christoph tells him to throw it out because the guy's a loony, but Pete just sticks it up in the projection booth and forgets all about it.
It was only a matter of time before the owners would pull the plug and shut the old theater down forever. Then, one Saturday night, things took an interesting turn.
Just after Christoph breaks the news to Pete and Katie that the owners are shutting the place down, Vink's film reel canister seems to awaken in the projection room. The lid begins to lift, emitting a blood-red glow of light from within, and releasing some strange dark magic. The projector then breaks, destroying the film with a cowboy movie that's currently being shown to a small audience. And the meager, grumbling crowd of theatergoers are prepared to leave, but Pete has an idea.
We've had technical difficulties with tonight's film and won't be able to continue with the showing. But we've got a special surprise. We're going to be showing a classic film from the golden age of silent movies instead.
He loads up Vink's vampire film while Katie tells the audience they'll receive a full refund if they don't enjoy a special surprise. And the old woman, just getting in her face, her breath smelling all kinds of popcorn.
This better be good, young lady. My time is valuable.
We know, lady, we know.
She only has so much of it left, so.
Ouch.
Enjoy the show.
And the film begins playing on the projector screen. And to my surprise, as an adult, the title card reads, Nosferatu, the Demon Vampire.
The Demon Vampire.
This is followed by the frightening image of the famous vampire himself, a pastiche depicting his pale skin, bald head, long fingers, and duck teeth. And while the mesmerized audience watches this movie in horrified pleasure, let's talk about the real Nosferatu, shall we?
I knew you would want to. I wrote in my notes, this was made for you, especially
it really
Christian.
Was.
We all know Christian loves his vampires. We spent some time with the Nightly Neighbors last Are You Afraid of the Dark season.
We really
and
did.
Coming back around, we knew that this was a Christian episode through and through.
You know that I love not just my vampires, but my old horror.
Old movies.
Cinema. My monster movies.
This one was yours.
I love it. Man, oh man. Let's take a bite.
Let's bite into this vampire film.
Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, is a 1922 silent German film adaptation of the 1897 Dracula novel by Bram Stoker. It's known for its artistic, morbid German expressionism that served as an allegory for the horrors of war following World War I. It's directed by F.W. Murnau, starring Max Schreck as the vampire Count Orlok. That's right, folks. The vampire's name is not Nosferatu, it's Count Orlok. This is another Frankenstein-esque oversimplification.
You saw it happening in my head. I was trying to figure out how to correctly make a Frankenstein joke in this moment.
Identity, yes.
It's not the vampire. It's the vampire's monster. It's the... it's the
Victor
doctor.
Frankenstein.
It's Dr. Vink.
It's Frankenstein! So the term Nosferatu is an archaic Romanian word that meant the offensive one, or the insufferable one, which eventually became synonymous with descriptions of vampires in Romanian culture.
I'd always wondered.
And the use of this word makes sense, of course, because Counts Dracula and Orlok both hail from their macabre castles in the haunted, wolf-infested hills of Transylvania, Romania.
Alexa, play Transylvania by McFly.
I also just learned that Bela Lugosi was Romanian. I didn't know that.
I feel like I knew that, but I don't know why I knew that.
If I did, I forgot. I feel like it healed some resentment I had toward a white Dracula, but
yeah,
he's Romanian, so
nice.
I forget that Eastern European people are also white.
A lot of them, yeah.
I don't know anything about anything. Is the problem.
We addressed that last time. It's okay.
I think every episode. But yes, you know I love this, so please allow me a moment to gush a little bit of blood.
We're here with you. We're here for you.
Nosferatu is considered a foundational film within the horror genre. So much so that a film critic by the name of Kim Newman framed it as a template for horror cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty familiar with this sentiment because of a horror course I took in college. And I remembered studying Nosferatu explicitly for this reason. And this week, I was happy to dust off one of the books we used for that class.
Nice. Keeping those books sometimes pays off when you do stuff like a nostalgic podcast about...
I kept the ones I really thought I would use eventually again. I didn't keep everything, but this one is a gem. It's called The Monster Show, A Cultural History of Horror by David J. Scow. And honestly, I can't believe I haven't pulled out this book for podcast research sooner.
Same.
Considering he's got a whole chapter on horror in the 50s called Drive-Ins Are a Ghoul's Best Friend. How I dropped the ball.
That makes me so happy.
On that, I don't even know. But I'm excited to use it because we're going to have another episode.
Did I tell you my grandparents worked at a drive-in theater?
I think you did talk about that.
I may have even said it on the show.
When we covered Thriller, I believe you, I'm not sure, either Prom Queen or Thriller.
I love a drive-in.
Scow writes in this book,
in 1921, there appeared in Germany a startling new horror icon which, for the first time in the cinema, bluntly superimposed the human and the animal to create an image of overwhelming dread. F.W. Murnau, in Nosferatu, presented a rat-faced vampire named Count Orlok, whose padded costume and prosthetic makeup would later influence countless other movie monsters, though oddly enough, very few vampires.
He then recounts a story told by the film's creator, Albin Grau, who was also one of the founders of Prana Film, the company that produced Nosferatu, which turned out to be its only film because it declared bankruptcy shortly after its release, which may have had something to do with Bram Stoker's widow. Get to that in a second. But in his attempts to promote the film, Grau published an article called Vampires that appeared to have addressed the film's conception more so than its production. As the story goes, while fighting in Serbia during World War I, Grau met a Romanian farmer turned soldier who told him of a true account of vampirism. This Romanian's own father, while cutting trees in the Balkans, died suddenly of a heart attack. He was buried on location without the benediction of a priest, and was subsequently discovered to be a vampire that would leave its unholy grave at night to feed. The Romanian even showed him the proof, quoting a yellowing official document attesting to the incident and describing the destruction of the father monster by staking and incineration. Classic ways to kill a vampire, which we did talk about a couple years ago in Nightly Neighbors from season 1. Ultimately, Grau's article was building to the larger point that war itself is like a cosmic vampire drinking the blood of millions.
Amen.
Beautifully put. Wish more Germans had shared that same distaste for war at the time.
Same.
Grau served, Murnau served, Max Schreck served, and he clearly had severe PTSD, which probably contributed to the absent dissociative nature of Count Orlok. Because in real life, he was one haunted individual, living in isolation and even claiming at one point later that he lived in a remote and incorporeal world.
Don't we all?
He was just never right again.
I don't mean to make light. We just, around here, tend to isolate and insulate ourselves.
That's what we do. Very familiar with that thought. I mean, seriously, I'm like, man, wow, ultimate emo before emo was cool. Got to play one of the most famous vampires in history, and also got to revel in, how
emotional hell,
sad and depressing life is, and like be respected for it.
Gain notoriety by being so emo.
By being sad. If only my sadness had the power to make me famous. I'd be so famous.
You would be so famous.
All right, I'll send you another quote.
Oh. Nosferatu was given an elaborate premiere in Berlin with an original orchestral score by Hans Erdmann, artistically tinted in shades of yellow, blue, rose, and sepia, and for a brief moment before the vampire's cinematic attack in blood red, Nosferatu unabashedly sought the approbation of the post-war intelligentsia, and its pestilential images were widely considered to be a reflection of the war and its wrenching aftermath. Lottie Eisner commented on the German predisposition toward morbid expressionism in the haunted screen. Mysticism and magic, the dark forces to which Germans have always been more than willing to commit themselves, had flourished in the face of death on the battlefields. The hecatombs of young men fallen in the flower of their youth seemed to nourish the grim nostalgia of the survivors, and the ghosts, which had haunted the German romantics, revived like the shades of Hades after droughts of blood. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's heavy. That's pretty dark. And it's also beautiful.
It is beautiful, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I just thought it was nice. I had to include it.
Yeah.
To kind of show, the mood of this film when it came out. Like the mindset of the men who made it, and the effect it had on the German people at the time. It really resonated with them on a level that, because it was so artistic and abstract, I don't think many people really even had words for how it made them feel.
I was just going to say that. It's more like an imprint.
It is, yeah.
Than anything.
I think it just made people feel validated in some ways, but absolutely terrified in others.
Terrified, but also like there's an element of like processing grief through it as well. Like even if the grief lives in it, it's part of that grieving process.
Yeah, totally. One blog post I came across this week briefly grumbled about the quote-unquote copyright infringement of this episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark regarding the film Nosferatu. So I want to address this gripe and definitively silence them haters right now.
Stick it to the haters.
To quote the copyright page on the website for Rosalind Franklin University. Yes, under current copyright law, most works published before 1923 entered the public domain at the start of their 95th calendar year of publication. So technically, under normal circumstances, Nosferatu wouldn't have entered the public domain until 2018. But there's one important detail that most people don't know, unless they've studied the history of horror or have any kind of peripheral knowledge of Nosferatu or vampire cinema at large. The original Nosferatu from 1922 legally doesn't exist. This is because Prana Film never acquired the film rights to Bram Stoker's novel Dracula, thus making it an unauthorized and unofficial film adaptation of the novel. And because this film enjoyed greater worldwide success than any of these shell-shocked Germans could have possibly imagined, Stoker's widow Florence caught wind of the film's existence, after which she sued and pursued the destruction of the film for nearly a decade.
Wow.
Eventually, the British Society of Authors stepped in, and all copies of the film were court-ordered to be destroyed. And officially, they were. But luckily for us, and for the Midnight Society, and for all of horror pop culture forever and ever, amen, a few copies did survive.
Thank goodness.
When Dr. Vink's own special version of Nosferatu comes to an end, the audience exits the theater giddy with delight.
I was so scared.
So good, I'll probably have nightmares for a week.
Show more classics like that, kid, and you might get a couple more customers.
Crowd pleaser.
See you tomorrow.
Good night. Tell your friends.
Pete and Katie are thrilled beyond belief.
Yes!
To the point that Pete wants to hug twice.
Let's hug again.
Yeah,
Pete.
he goes,
He just wants
let's
to hug
hug
about
again.
it. He wants to keep hugging about it.
Oh, that to me was so cute.
Let's hug again.
We've all had those celebratory moments of like something good happening and there's somebody that you kind of like that you get to hug, and it's really funny that he said the quiet part out loud and he's like, let's hug again.
Let's hug again.
Why not go for it, you know?
I mean, hey.
You only get so many hugs on this mortal plane.
That's true. And as humans, we need as many hugs as we can get.
Facts.
But Katie is distracted.
Exactly what that Dr. Vink guy said would happen.
Oh, yeah, I guess it is. Weird. Let's talk this stuff. Come on.
We now cut back to the Midnight Society for what I think is the last time in the series. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's a good note because we're going to have to keep tabs on that. We definitely did not cut back during Final Wish.
Right.
So
Right. We'll do our best.
they're moving away from that.
I believe so. I think it's much easier.
Yeah.
Continue to hear voiceovers for a while, and then I think eventually we even stop getting the voiceovers as like narration. I think it's just the story.
Wow.
Just simplifying.
I do like the voiceovers though.
I like the voiceovers.
We'll have to, we're going to watch this as we go.
Dr. Vink's movie was a smash. So, they started a Saturday night Midnight Madness show, and it became a huge cult hit. They got so busy, the owners decided not to sell.
Just as Dr. Vink predicted.
Just as Dr. Vink predicted.
Just as Dr. Vink predicted. And now we get to see more of Vink's Nosferatu. A man in Victorian clothes runs to a wooden coffin in what appears to be the dungeon of some old Gothic castle. He yells out silently, followed by the intertitle that reads, "The light! I must get the coffin to the light before the demon returns!"
That's how I heard it in my head. I don't know about you.
I could have done better. It's my first time. The man begins dragging the coffin across the stone floor when the vampire appears in the doorway, announcing that it's too late. He calls the man Harker, which is funny because this is a reference to Jonathan Harker from Dracula. And the name of the parallel character in Nosferatu is Thomas Hutter. Jonathan Harker, Thomas Hutter, John and Tom. Very common names.
They are.
Harker and Hutter.
Harker, I hardly know her.
Hutter, I hardly know her. The vampire assails him, bites his neck, and then stretches out in Count Orlok's signature pose of victory as the words "The End" appear on the screen. The crowd, as they say, goes wild.
The crowd goes wild.
And just as Pete is about to ask Katie out again, Dr. Vink appears in the doorway, much like the vampire himself.
Mm-hmm.
He and Christoph wind up having a heated argument about the terms of their agreement. See, Vink merely reminds Christoph of what he agreed to, but Christoph misconstrues the whole thing and reneges on his end of the deal, ultimately refusing to hold up his end of the bargain. He keeps trying to offer Vink what he himself would want: money.
Why don't I just write you a check?
I don't want your money. I don't want your friendship. I want your theater.
And what Vink means is, I don't want your money. I want to show my movie in your theater. What he actually says, what comes out of his mouth is, I don't want your money, I want your theater.
Mm-hmm.
He's speaking too concisely, and it's confusing Christoph.
He also, I don't want your friendship.
He also says
either.
that too, yes.
In case anybody was wondering if Dr. Vink needs friends.
No, he doesn't need.
He doesn't.
This is where I relate to Dr. Vink.
I have enough. Thank you very much. Don't need any more of them.
Plenty of those. I'm good.
One shouldn't make a bargain if they can't honor their commitments.
Maybe we...
Look, pal, it's not gonna happen. You want a rental fee for your movie? Fine. But you are not getting this theater. End of story.
It took me a couple watches to realize that this back and forth, this conversation wasn't just bad writing. Actually, it's a pretty good example of how the game of telephone can be played between only two people if one of them is an idiot or drunk or both.
Anytime there's a misunderstanding, there's just a fundamental, literal, actual misunderstanding between people. They are not understanding one another.
Right. It was strange that he only wants one night a week, and he's like, I could maybe give you a Saturday, midnight showings. And I'm like, that's all he wants.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally all he wants.
Yeah.
And you're saying you could, but you're not gonna. Like,
yeah.
What do you mean?
It was weird.
It just bothered me a lot, but I think Christoph's just dumb.
And drunk.
And drunk.
This story is far, far from over. In fact, it's only just beginning.
One late night, while rewatching Vink's Nosferatu alone, Pete falls asleep. He dreams that when the movie ends, it doesn't actually end. And in a moment of sheer adolescent terror, the vampire breaks the fourth wall of his own movie by noticing that Pete is asleep.
Yeah.
This is the part that gave me nightmares.
It's spooky. Like, straight up spooky.
Yes. He silently approaches the projector screen and with his undead eyes locked on his next sleeping victim, passes through the two-dimensional black and white screen and enters the 3D world of color and sound. And now that he's here with us, this Nosferatu is played by Chris Heyerdahl. He returns as Leonid in the 13th Floor. That's coming up soon.
Leonid?
Yes,
Leonid.
Hi, Leonid. I have no idea.
Leonid?
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Leonid? I think of like, isn't that like a space thing?
I don't
meteor
know.
shower? The Leonid meteor shower?
Maybe so.
I'm speaking out of turn.
We'll know soon. This guy's becoming one of my favorite actors. He basically got his start on this show. The only thing he did before this was one episode of 21 Jump Street. He did a few really cool things for the next decade or so, appearing in films like Blade Trinity and The Chronicles of Riddick, and TV shows like The Dead Zone, Psych, Smallville, Stargate Atlantis, and Supernatural.
Wow. The early 2000s, like, quadfecta.
He was in there. But what he's best known for is his role of Marcus in the Twilight Saga, one of the Volturi.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Another vampire.
Another vampire.
Wow. Didn't hit me till you said it, but
he's done a few things in this whole arena.
He's very vampiric, I guess.
He sure is. He's got that look.
Got the vampiric germ, as Dwight would say.
From there, he's acted in True Blood, CSI, Hell on Wheels, for which he won an ACTRA for Outstanding Male Performance. He was in Togo, the Van Helsing series, for which he won a Leo for Best Lead Performance by a Male in a Dramatic Series. He was in Peacemaker, The Last of Us, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, Pee-wee's Big Holiday, and my personal favorite performance of his, Eamon Lafferty in Under the Banner of Heaven.
Man, he's an actor. Like, he's an actor.
He's an actor, yes.
Like, seriously.
He can do it all.
He can even walk right out of the screen.
So talented. So gifted.
His performance just really just jumps right off the screen.
Just right off the screen. It's just so good. But I did make a list of his most on-brand B-horror themed credits. Twist of Terror, Bleeders, The Hunger, The Ghost of Charles Dickens, Out of Mind, The Stories of H.P. Lovecraft, Matthew Blackheart, Monster Smasher, Masters of Horror, Cadavers, 50 Shades of Fright, Them, R.L. Stein's The Haunting Hour, for which he won a Leo for the best performance in a children's program. He also won the 2005 H.P. Lovecraft Award. So this guy is like, I want to like, how do I do that?
Yeah, that he's living the life that you want.
Yeah, like how do I...
You need to somehow contract the vampiric germ.
Done. I've wanted that since I was 16. Sign me up.
It involves bats, according to The Office.
Sure.
And then you wait for nightfall.
And just hope nobody stabs you in the heart.
Exactly.
Maybe I'm not a vampire anymore because I've been stabbed in the heart so many times.
Oh, emo Christian.
Yeah. Deep cuts. That's going to be my...
How dare you?
My vampire comedy album.
I must not be a vampire because I've already been stabbed in the heart.
Is that original?
Yeah. It's a Caitlin Andrews original.
Some pretty good garage rock
Thanks.
Vibes there.
You know, I've only ever wanted to be in a garage rock band.
You know what? I just had the weirdest dream.
What?
I thought I saw Nosferatu step out of the movie.
I think you've been working here too long.
Chalking it up to a nightmare, they laugh it off and do a little more flirting. While unbeknownst to them, some shuffling figure stalks the upstairs hallway.
Ooh.
slowly approaching the office door of Mr. Kristoff, who sits with his back turned, fully unaware that he's about to become the prey of a Nosferatu.
I understand that you're trying to get to this moment. I get why, but you're glossing over the flirting.
Just...
Because it's cute.
Yeah.
Because he says he's a geek, and she's like, you're not a geek, Pete. You're a nerd.
It's pretty, yeah.
These are all things that, like, 13-year-old Kaylin would have written. So she felt very validated to see them on screen.
Yeah, it's adorable.
You know?
It's great, yeah. Mm-hmm. Just, it fills
Back
me...
to the vampire, I guess.
Fills
Whatever.
me with just life and hope for young love.
Young love is cute. It's cute.
It doesn't last.
It's good to see. It doesn't last, but nothing does. That's the whole point.
That's true.
Nothing does. So enjoy it.
Maybe that's why I cling to like monsters and vampires, because they're eternal.
Because they are as certain as death and taxes.
Hey. All right. Sold. Let's go on, kids.
Pack
Flirt.
it up.
Come on, kids. Flirt some more. Hug it. You know what? Hug again.
Let's hug again. Why not?
Don't let me stop you. I'm an old codger.
We need these moments. It's all part of the Fright Night package, and you know it just as well as I do.
There's usually romance involved.
Always.
Just before someone is slaughtered.
Exactly.
Poor Mr. Kristoff. I can't believe they actually showed the bleeding wounds on his neck.
Yeah, that was gross.
I mean, it's pretty gory for a kid's show in the 90s.
It is. It's pretty dark.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just bleeding. It was like pus.
It was pretty gross.
It wasn't what I would have chosen as a vampire bite probably, but then you look at Nosferatu's teeth and you're like, no, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, his crooked buck teeth he's got going on, and Kristoff is straight up unconscious. Like he might actually be dead. I think that's kind of the takeaway.
But yeah, I think in the moment you're supposed to think that he is.
The phone is at least for sure dead because this ancient vampire somehow knew to kill the phone lines, but it was this funny moment where they can't say Kristoff is dead. They can pick up the phone and go,
It's dead.
It's dead.
The phone's dead.
No way.
It's dead.
Which is honestly,
right next to Kristoff.
Pointing that out. That's such a DJ McHale
yeah.
Can't quite touch it, but I'm not touching you.
Really close.
I'm not touching you. Yeah. It's funny.
And when the kids find Kristoff's body, they try to run for help. But the front doors are barred.
No.
There's no escape.
Pete, what is going on?
No, it's Dr. Ving. It's gotta be. He's trying to scare us.
Well, he's doing a good
And
job.
this is where the true fear of this episode begins to burrow itself under our skin and leave us having nightmares about it later. These kids are trapped inside a dark, musty, old movie theater with an undead creature of the night with a talent for patiently stalking its prey from the shadows. There's no way out and no way to call for help. It knows they're alone and they're vulnerable. And even worse, it knows that it has all night to do whatever it wants to them.
Wow. That's pretty dark.
That's pretty dark.
Have me looking for that flask.
Looking for that flask.
Ooh.
And a flashlight.
And a flashlight.
Flashlight.
No. No.
Sounds a lot like something else.
It does, which is why I said no.
Flask light.
Right.
That should be in our pretty dark merch. A flask light. It's a flask.
A flask that turns into a flashlight.
Yeah, it's a flashlight.
That doesn't sound dangerous at all.
What, you don't often soak batteries in alcohol and then drink the alcohol? It's not part of your...
Not usually.
Just me. Just me.
It's not what I meant.
It gives it this nice metallic-y electric taste. It tastes
Yum.
like
battery
the moments.
acid.
It tastes like
Yum.
the electricity in the air before a storm.
Oh.
You know?
Now you're selling me on it. That's a cocktail that I would not mind sipping.
It tastes like pennies.
I get where you're going. I just don't think you should be going there.
No, it's bad. If you start tasting pennies, run.
You still with us, guys? How you doing?
The front
Hanging in there?
double doors. The front double doors open once again to reveal the vampire, standing in Count Orlok's signature pose with his arms crossed over his chest and his fingers extended like crooked talons.
The hands are just too much.
So much.
They really bother me a lot.
Classic Orlok. They run and barricade themselves in some kind of a storage room.
Is that the vampire?
No! Yes! Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I did see it come out of the movie.
Movies aren't real.
Well, that guy looked pretty real to me.
And there's a funny thing about this moment. They don't just lock the door or block it with a chair or piece of furniture. They use an actual medieval-style drawbar that's already set in place for them to pull down. And
I noted that too. I was like,
door.
why does this door lock like this?
I have some thoughts.
Okay.
Well, this kind of defense implement was once used to block the doors and gates of castles, so I think it was fully intended as a nod to the more cliche locations found within vampire tales. You know, old castles specifically.
That is a good word.
And the reason why I think it's in this old movie theater is because a little known superpower of Stoker's Dracula is telepathy. In other words, this vampire might be able to psychically project the idea of a drawbar into the minds of these children, who would think they're using it to secure the door, when in reality they haven't actually done anything.
Anything at all.
Right. Either way.
Whoa.
The bar is lifted using some kind of mind powers, and the chase continues.
It was all in their head.
Possibly.
You seen that meme lately? It's like...
Which one?
It's all in your head. And then the response in this meme is like, great, but I live there, so... Smiley face.
That's
like,
that Dumbledore quote.
That doesn't help.
Of course it's happening inside your head, Harry. Why should that mean it's not real?
Yep. Which takes us right back to the Midnight Society campfire.
There he is. There are a number of like hyper stylized shots in this episode too that I thought were really great. This moment in particular.
There's even like a camera point of view early on.
Yeah, there's a POV.
Like Blair Witch style. Yeah. Like they do some different camera work.
There's a slasher film angle to it for sure.
The point of view from above as they run away from Nosferatu because he's taller, like when they first come upon him in the theater.
Oh, yeah.
That's also good. Very like, it feels very slasher. It's different. It's not what we usually see.
It's not typical of the show, right? And they styled some after, Nosferatu too, of like seeing his shadow creeping along the wall.
Yes.
And this moment here where they run off, but we see his fingers like wrap around the door. And like kind of like
coming out from the door, yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of nice. It's kind of cool. They knew what they were doing. I want to see the storyboard for this episode. I want to see it all mapped out.
And all those notes that they probably had.
Pete and Katie find themselves locked in the projector booth now. And they continue their conversation about how real this vampire actually is. Katie's still in denial, but Pete lays it out plain.
There's something weird about that movie, and Dr. Vink's using it to get revenge.
Oh, this can't be real.
Well, Pete is really onto something big here. Do you remember what Christoph said earlier?
A black and white silent film is going to turn this place around. That ain't a vampire movie. That's a fairy tale.
I do.
Well, this is DJ McHale we're talking about, so why can't it be both?
Why can't it be both? ¿Por qué no los dos?
If the story structure of this episode seems familiar, it's because you've definitely seen it done before. And that's because it's based on one of the most famous fairy tales and oldest urban legends ever told, the Pied Piper.
Hey!
This took me on one of the deepest deep dives I may have ever taken.
That's a powerful statement.
Other than the green ribbon.
Yeah.
Officially called the Pied Piper of Hamelin, a.k.a. the Rat Catcher of Hamelin, or Der Rattenfänger von Hamelin.
Whoa.
This is a German folk legend turned fairy tale that, in my opinion, is one of the most haunting and disturbing accounts of world history and folklore ever documented.
Damn.
And I do say history because there are a lot of people who have believed for a very long time that this story is true. Or at the very least, the events that inspired the story did actually occur. For one reason or another, hundreds of years ago, 130 children went missing from Hamelin, Germany in a single day. The result of which is an eternally famous fable about a child abducting boogeyman known worldwide as the Pied Piper.
Damn. It's pretty dark.
And I wrote my own brief version of the classic tale that I will now send to you to read.
Once upon a time, in the year 1284, the village of Hamelin found itself suffering under the scourge of a rat infestation that brought not only store depletion and starvation, but pestilence and ill health. One day, at the height of the hunger and sickness, a mysterious man waltzed into town wearing bright, multicolored garments and wielding only a single tool, that is, a wind instrument resembling a pipe or a flute, but was foreign to the people of Hamelin. Learning of the verminous plight of the village, the stranger, with his pied clothing and his funny music, spoke with the town elders, professing himself to be a gifted rat catcher. He himself would rid Hamlin of its rodential plague, using nothing more than the music from his pipe. All he asked for in return was, well, a certain sum of money. It was nothing compared to what the rats had already cost them, and of course he'd found success in many other towns, so what did they have to lose? The village elders laughed at the mysterious piper, agreeing to give him whatever he wished if he could only do as promised and remove every last rat from the village. And so, with all the villagers standing by to witness, the Pied Piper played a tune from his strange flute and walked toward the river Weser. From every dark corner of Hamlin, a drove of thousands of rats broke free into the daylight and followed the stranger into the deep flowing waters, where they drowned. But when the piper returned to the elders, despite the testimony presented by those who'd witnessed the miracle, the elders outright refused to pay the piper, insisting that it was he who brought the rats to Hamlin in the first place, and accused him of extortion. The strange piper then went away quietly, with a crooked smile on his face, vowing to take revenge, and swearing that they would soon be sorry. On the holy day known as St. John and Paul's Day, while the adults were in church, the stranger returned at midday, this time dressed in all black, and playing a very different tune from his funny little pipe. The children of Hamlin were mesmerized by the piper's new song, and all those who could walk and see and hear from the age of 4 and up emerged from their households and began following the stranger as blindly as the rats had done mere days before.
Come, little children, I'll take thee away. And on what day were these kids taken away, Kaylin?
June 26th?
June 26th.
No way.
June?
No way.
Freaking 26th.
You guys didn't see the look on my face before I said it, but my mouth was hanging open. The Pied Piper story that we all know. We've all just now heard it, but we all know it from our childhood in some variation or some telling.
Yes.
It was on June 26th.
June 26th.
What, 1284?
Of 1284.
June 26th.
That is
1284.
709 years to the day that this Are You Afraid of the Dark episode premiered. And 740 years to the day that we're recording this episode.
Wow.
June 26th.
Well, guys, if ever I've seen a reason to pay the piper, it's this. He is letting us know on no uncertain terms.
If you needed your sign, this is it.
Damn. I'm really sorry that you guys aren't hearing this on June 26th, but the way that it feels to me and Christian right now,
it's a big moment.
Speaking these words on June 26th is
a
pretty
really big
cool.
Moment. Yeah. And like I said, I finished polishing the script as the sun was coming up.
On June 26th.
On June 26th. So like I had all the Pied Piper and vampire, like I was going to bed as the sun was rising. I felt like I was fully immersed in this, whatever this is.
And did you pay the piper?
Not yet.
You're working on it.
I don't know what I owe him yet. He's got to get back to me. Haven't heard back yet.
You haven't gotten the IOU?
I haven't gotten it back yet. It's as good as money. On June 26th, 1284, 130 children in total disappeared from Hamlin.
Wow.
Historically, they walked out of town and never came back.
Oh my God.
Some accounts say a nanny stayed behind to tell everyone what happened. Other accounts say there was a deaf child who couldn't hear the music or a crippled child who couldn't walk to follow, which is very Odysseus. Tying himself to the mast so he can hear the siren song without throwing himself overboard. Mm-hmm. The earliest indicator that this story is true comes from a stained glass window that was placed in the St. Nikolai Cathedral circa 1300, 16 years after the event, which would be like 1984 to Y2K.
Okay, yeah.
That close. This glass was a visual depiction of the traumatic event that occurred, but sadly, the window was broken and replaced in 1660. Lost to time.
Damn.
In 1384, a Deacon Lude of Hamlin reportedly owned a chorus book with an eyewitness account of the event scribbled in the margins in Latin. The Lüneburg manuscript from the 1440s gives the first account written in actual German, which wasn't discovered until 1936 by German researcher Heinrich Spaneth. The same account was written down in Latin by a monk named Heinrich von Erfurt in 1370, quoting on the back of the last tattered page of a dusty chronicle called The Golden Chain. A testimony that made no mention of rats whatsoever, but merely told of a strange man who came to Hamlin in 1284, played from his flute, and lured away 130 children who vanished without a trace.
A certain young man, 30 years of age, handsome and well-dressed, so that all who saw him admired him because of his appearance, crossed the bridges and entered the town by the west gate. He then began to play all through the town a silver pipe of the most magnificent sort. All of the children who heard his pipe, in the number of 130, followed him to the east gate and out of the town to the so-called execution place, or Calvary. There they proceeded to vanish so that no trace of them could be found. The mothers of the children ran from town to town, but they found nothing.
There's also an inscription on a house in Hamelin called the Rat Catcher's House, or the Rattenfanger House.
I feel a little queasy.
That is considered by some to be the oldest surviving account. It reads,
in the year 1284, on the day of Saints John and Paul, 26th of June, 130 children born in Hamelin were misled by a piper clothed in many colors to Calvary near Copenhill and lost.
There's another structure known as the Wedding House, built in the early 1600s, that contains a similar inscription.
In the year of our Lord, 1284, went into the Copen under custody 130 children born in Hamelin by a piper, seduced, and lost.
This goes on and on, including a town gate now in the Hamelin Museum that's said to be the oldest surviving structural evidence of the legend. And as you can now tell, there's a staggering amount of evidence that something happened.
Something happened
to those children of Hamelin.
Something happened.
Nearly 1,000 years
You
ago.
hope it was a miracle. To quote Mr. John Mulaney.
Something happened.
Wow.
And luckily, there are a few legitimate theories as to what exactly it was that happened.
Okay.
One distinction I really want to make clear is that the rats weren't added to the legend until the 16th century, circa 1559, by Count Froben Christoph von Zimmern, emphasis on the Christoph, who told of the account in his Zimmern Chronicle, basically an old world family newsletter, which tied his own family history with that of Hamelin and its Pied Piper, detailing the events through an explicitly Black Plague lens and introducing the idea of a rat infestation to the tale, sealing their eternal connection with the legend and thus the fairy tale that would eventually be transcribed by Jacob and William Grimm in the 1800s. This idea fell in line with other analogous examples born of the Danse Macabre, leading to other versions where the piper led the children directly into the same river as the rats and drowned them too. But
so wait, to get us on board.
This predates the Black Plague and the Danse Macabre and everything, so.
That's what
rats.
I was about to say. It predates that stuff and the rats.
So basically, if the legend existed for nearly 300 years before rats were ever mentioned, that means that the true story consists of little more than the appearance of a stranger
luring
followed
away
closely by the disappearance of a number of children.
Yes. So kind of undermines the whole thing because the paying of the piper was important because the revenge of the piper
The paying of the piper comes from the moral of the story about pay your debts.
Right. Because if you don't, the piper will come to town and take your children.
Right. That was born from the fairy tale. That was born from the folk tale. Before that is the legend.
I see.
That someone came and just took the children.
Gotcha.
So it's very complicated. And now we're going to...
But that's also interesting because that means that, A, as we've discussed so many times on our show, the fairy tale came out of the grief in order to explain the situation. There was a reason.
Yep. I tip my hat
quoting,
to you.
Air quotes.
Yes.
It's not a good reason, but there was a reason that the children disappeared. The fairy tale created the reason.
It puts blame onto something that... It places blame on something very specific, that if you feel guilty and you blame yourself, which I'm about to get to some reasons why, or one reason why the parents may have felt some guilt, it helps to kind of, let's make it a fable.
Right.
Let's make it a story that has a moral.
A story with a moral that will help other people not make mistakes that lead to more lost children. Like that kind of a, let's try to pay it forward in the future. Because we don't want a tragedy to happen again.
There's a lot of generational trauma involved in this story. As we're about
is there
to
in Nosferatu.
And is in Nosferatu. Yes.
And on
all this stuff intertwined. Our show.
Wow.
It's like we keep talking about that over and over. It's generational trauma. And missing children.
And children, yeah.
Historical, or monsters of both the historical and the fictional. Due to this idea that someone showed up and just took the children. Obviously, the mind wanders to the idea of a child predator, which is what led to author William Manchester's wildly unfounded claims that the Piper was literally a psychopathic pedophile who abducted the children from Hamelin, resulting in, quoting, trigger warning, content warning.
Trigger warning. Skip ahead 15 seconds.
Skip ahead, yeah. Resulting in disembodied little bodies found scattered in the forest underbrush or festooning the branches of trees. Luckily, this claim has been explored and largely dismissed because there's just not enough evidence. If that actually happened, we would know this as a historical event and not something through the lens of a fairy tale.
Yes, agreed.
Thank goodness.
If that evidence was found.
Yes.
Yes.
And I looked into it myself, and this book was published in what year? 1992, at the biased, fear-mongering height of Stranger Danger and the Satanic Panic. So I think he kind of had an angle he was playing up of fear everyone all the time, no matter what. Some accounts say the Piper led the children into the nearby forest for pagan rituals, where they were either swallowed by a sinkhole, crushed in a sudden landslide, or waylaid and massacred by offended Christians. Again, this was in the 1200s, so Crusades.
Contemporary with the Crusades.
Some versions, such as Robert Browning's famous poem, suggest that a portal to another world opened up, and the children were led safely along to a land of happiness.
Perfect.
This is the version that Disney favored in its own retelling of the Pied Piper story, which I haven't seen.
I haven't either, but I've read the little, I think there's a little golden book, and there are some that are similar. That's
the
what I
Disney
grew
classics.
up. That was the Pied Piper that I knew.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
As a child.
But to me, this sounds a lot like Pinocchio and the boys being spirited away to Pleasure Island. So, I don't know.
They're in a better place now.
A better place. Sounds a lot like heaven, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost like they wanted to believe that the children just died and went to heaven. These safer, happier depictions of the Piper come from the idea that the stranger was Jesus incarnate, or some kind of guardian angel that ushered them to heaven.
But why?
The other side of that particular coin, and the one that I find much more interesting, is that the Piper is the devil incarnate. This makes so much more sense, considering all the European folklore and warnings against dancing to the devil's music. And this...
Keep saying it like that. Sorry, editing Christian.
And you're going to love this. This is the obligatory part where I mention the very real and historically documented examples of hysterical dancing plagues.
Oh, yeah. Have we done this yet?
I don't know if we've talked about it.
We always flirt with it. We're always like, this happened, by the way. But
this is a real thing I can't believe happened. But
if we've gone there before, listener, we apologize. We're now getting towards 75, 80 episodes in.
Well,
we don't know anymore.
Who knows? I have no
Hopefully
idea.
You do.
This is known as Saint Vitus's dance, which suggests the children of Hamelin were stricken by their own type of dancing mania that resulted in them feverishly gyrating and twerking themselves off a goddamn cliffside.
No.
I just...
Did you talk about it in Green Ribbon? Now I'm wondering, because I do feel like I've learned about this.
I didn't. This is a real phenomenon that happened in history, and there's a lot of ties to it, maybe having something to do with ergot poisoning, which is what they also blamed the Salem witch trials on, which has been disproven. It's not true. There's a lot of different reasons for this, but it was this weird cultural phenomenon.
But there are
during the Dark Age, or the medieval
theories
period.
that something similar happened to these children, basically, that they were possessed by something biological, chemical.
Yeah, that made them dance out of town, out of the East Gate or whatever, and vanished forever, which is kind of the idea that they heard a music nobody else could hear.
Okay, all right.
So they were lured away by this phantom Piper.
Group psychosis.
Group psychosis, which would make people assume it was the devil.
What is it?
Folie à deux, but that's madness for two.
It's just two people, I know. But something like that.
Mass hallucination, like group hallucination's a real thing. Group hallucinations are fascinating. This is where more than two people all witness the same thing.
Have the same,
I don't know, this is such a prevailing theory that there's a street in Hamlin that to this day is named after the event. And there's no music allowed on that street. There's no dancing allowed on that street. If there are parades or any kind of events or anything, when they get to that street, well, if they have to cross it, they have to cross it in silence.
Wow.
Because it's considered a very, very
yeah.
It's disrespectful. It would be an incredibly bad omen to do that, because I want to know what they're afraid of. I want to know like what they think might happen. But I think it's more of a gesture of respect to the history. And I'm sure it's a lot of fun too. I'm sure they kind of, it's spooky one of those, ghost story.
Yeah, it's an urban legend.
It's an urban legend. I think it's just part of their culture and their history. And there's a guy who dresses up every day as the Pied Piper in Hamelin that you can go meet for yourself right now.
Wow.
If you want to. Here, his name is...
But that's not disrespectful?
Yeah, it's confusing. His name is Michael Boyer, and he dresses up every day as the Pied Piper. It's a tourist, like a tourism grab type of thing.
I've been to Germany a couple times, but never Hamelin.
That's too bad.
But I think if I did go to Hamelin, I'd have to see it.
I want to walk down that street out of the east gate, toward the east, and
just see it.
Figure it out.
Feel it.
Just to do it. I'm going to just shook and jive myself all the way down. And you know how much I hate
children dancing.
So
I do.
This is scary to me on a number of levels. But somewhere in between the bad angel and the good devil lives the idea that the piper exists as nothing more than a metaphor for death itself, which we keep sort of teasing. And I intentionally included mentions of disease and starvation in my own retelling that you read, because that's a commonly explored theory, that the children of Hamelin simply died due to the extreme difficulty of the time or some epidemic that specifically targeted the children over the adults more so, like diphtheria, perhaps.
I was about to say, the way that they depicted diphtheria in Balto, it really did affect adults too. But
it did, yes.
Yeah.
But there could have been something. It definitely wasn't the Black Plague, the bubonic plague, because that did not differentiate between children and adults. But,
just
something
sort
like
of
that.
illness or,
something their immune system couldn't handle.
It was not uncommon for children to die of fevers of unknown, there may not even be a name for it, but something may be swept through quickly.
Very quickly.
In a day.
A monk in the mid-1300s described a quote-unquote miracle in 1284, where a youth appeared, played music from a flute, and lured all the youths of Hamelin out of town to Calvarian Hill, where they vanished. It described the children as being eaten alive by Calvary. Calvary is another name for Golgotha, meaning the place of the skull in Jerusalem where Jesus of Nazareth was crucified.
Yep.
There's a reason this particular hill outside of Hamelin isn't clearly designated. The term Calvary is intended to be a name rendered from overtly Catholic symbolism meant to depict a place of death of the innocent. In other words, the children were led to the local site of public execution and they didn't come back.
I don't know how to feel right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated... No one really knows how to feel about this.
Yeah, how are y'all doing? Are you guys okay?
There's a lot of fear.
I've never really thought all that critically, I guess, about the Pied Piper.
It's always unnerved me. It's a disturbing story.
Yeah.
The children are just whisked away.
Taken.
The term spirited away comes up a lot in this research. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, and I don't like it, and it's scary.
It is scary.
Freaks me out. Because that's what it feels like when a kid goes missing. It feels like they just vanished.
Yeah.
They didn't. Someone took them or something bad happened. But it feels like they just totally disappeared off the face of the earth.
So all we know for certain, or at least as certain as we can be based on all of these like monuments, inscriptions, etc. going back, is that 130 children of Hamelin died on June 26th.
That's one theory, that they did die.
Or disappeared.
Or disappeared. Right. Okay. Yes,
that's really all we know.
That's really all we know.
But there is mention of a fancily dressed man.
Yes.
With a flute.
Yes.
Okay.
We know that the children went missing, and there are all these accounts of a man in fancy dress playing music. And that brings me to the most historically, logically probable theory.
Okay. So you've been teasing us for a long time now. This is what we need to know.
Just tickling all y'all's fancies. This is known as the immigration theory. This prevailing theory has to do with overpopulation and economic depression. It wasn't uncommon at the time for recruiters to travel from town to town in overpopulated areas, offering wages in exchange for anyone willing to relocate and colonize the underpopulated Baltic region of Eastern Europe. They would wear colorful clothing and play instruments to draw attention of crowds.
Of course. Okay.
And they would each come as silver-tongued as the devil himself.
Okay.
Convincing people to do this, that it's good for them, that it's what's
selling
best.
you on leaving your home and land.
Selling you on leaving everything
elsewhere.
that you know, or those who might sell you to him. The ultimate location was likely the regions surrounding Berlin, which were recently liberated from the Danes and, despite being populated by the Slavs, were there for German taking. And this is backed by the fact that family names common in Hamlin have been found in these regions with quite a lot of frequency.
Okay.
But one of the more common iterations of this theory says that the children were led not over a hill, but down into a cave, giving credence to the claims that the children were swallowed up by the earth or eaten alive by Calvary. It's said the children were actually sold by their own parents to a silver-tongued recruiting agent who guided them through a subterranean passageway from one land to another, where they eventually resided in a region once ravaged and depleted of its population by Mongol forces, led by the descendants of Genghis Khan himself. This region is Transylvania, and there is much evidence to suggest it had once been populated by a mass of immigrants from Hamlin. So I'm convinced.
Well then.
I'm convinced that DJ knew about this theory, and this is why he chose Nosferatu as the Piper's, Dr. Vink's film. Not just because it's a film about a vampire from Transylvania, but because it's a German film about a vampire from Transylvania. And I'm also certain he knew what he was doing by releasing this episode on June 26th. And if he didn't, what a hell of a happy coincidence that must have been. I was about to say,
if he didn't, that's almost just as impressive.
It's scary. That is scary.
It is scary.
If he didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christian sat back. His arms are behind his head. He's done. He says, I connected your dots. What more do you want from me?
I know it was a lot of history and it was a lot of, scary stories. And they are all very, very scary. But possibly one of the scariest things is that the generational trauma and the guilt that these parents felt.
You said early on that parents might have felt some guilt here, and now
selling away their children
absolutely makes sense.
Because there was no food, no room, and they had no money. And so they just had to do what they had to do.
And I can also see as a parent maybe making that decision to hopefully give your child a better life or future than you're able to provide them in the current moment.
Right. So, but that's never easy no matter what.
Of course not.
So
damn.
It's possible that this then became a fable in its own way. Someone came and took our children. He deceived us. He convinced us to do this. We regret it. We didn't want, we wish we hadn't done that.
Right.
It's not our fault. It's his fault. And maybe it's because there were also maybe like rats.
Right. Maybe it was the rats. That's always a theory. That's always a possibility.
So anyway.
Plausibility for most of Europe, frankly.
I just think the whole thing's pretty dark, and I'm here for it.
It is pretty dark. You're not wrong about that. I was busy trying to concoct a way for the Piper to then become the parents that were deceived, and they aren't being paid back, and these cycles could just fall in on themselves if you want them to.
It's just hundreds of years of the story evolving, being retold. It's the game of telephone. That's history. And
it's also interesting as well, going back to our episode, it's interesting that instead of playing music, the Dr. Vink Pied Piper instead brings movies.
Yeah.
Another form of entertainment.
Attention-grabbing entertainment.
To the table.
Right. Well, back in the projector booth of the Rialto, in this Are You Afraid of the Dark universe, where it's safely scary, and we know that we're going to be okay in the end.
Even if we're not right now. Because there is a freaky vampire on the loose, straight from the depths of the black and white cinema.
Okay, I got an idea. Thread up the last reel and project it.
Why? What are you gonna do?
Probably something stupid, but I gotta try. Yeah, when it's ready.
And as the vampire approaches Katie in a painfully quiet, slow display of suspense, she flips the projector switch. And in one of the coolest special effects we may ever see on the show.
So cool.
The camera trucks sideways along the stage, following Pete as he approaches the projector screen and steps through it, passing from the world of color into one entirely devoid of it. Big props to the cinematographer Carol Ike.
I was so impressed. I watched this part like 3 or 4 times. I was like, this
I tried to
cool.
see how they did it, and like I have an idea, but I think it would be really hard. I don't know if I'm right.
Let it be the magical thing that it is. If you guys haven't seen this in a while, or if you vaguely remember it from your childhood, I would recommend going and finding it because it's very impressive. It's very impressive.
It really is.
Very impressive.
Carol did 39 episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Carol died in 2022.
Oh, no.
So R.I.P. and thank you for your contribution.
Thank you,
Thank you
Carol.
for impressing us. It's hard to be impressed at a certain age, especially looking back at things that were once
I was going
made.
to say, and to buy certain, media that as a child was impressive, but
it holds up.
Doesn't always hold up. This does.
Holds up. Pete is now inside the film. Parker's lifeless body still lies on the floor next to the vampire's coffin, which Pete begins to move.
Sorry, pal. Gotta finish what you started.
And the vampire approaches the screen, realizing his own demise is close at hand. He quickly teleports back into the film with a ferocious growl and a disturbing gesticulation of aggression. And he slowly draws closer to Pete without a word. And despite being a silent film, Pete can talk.
I did notice that.
Bothered me a little bit.
Well,
but
he's not
hey,
from the silent film, so
that's also true. That's also true.
those rules don't apply.
Pete, I'm gonna stop the film.
No, I'll be trapped in here.
Which also pretty dark and terrifying prospect.
Yeah, for real. Trapped in there with the vampire?
Yeah, trapped in Nosferatu, trapped in the movie.
He's done. Yeah, he be dead.
Halloween Town vibes.
Ooh, hey, yeah. Man, I can't wait for Halloween. Pete gives a heroic speech and tells the vampire, I saw this film.
I saw this film, and I know how it ends.
And I know how it is.
And I'm doing it right.
And I'm doing it right.
I think I've seen this film before, and I didn't like the ending.
That's what Pete's singing, man.
You're not my homeland anymore. So what am I defending now?
Pete is just, he's got it. He knows what he's doing.
Yep. He could see that Taylor Swift coming from a mile away. Opportunity.
He pulls the cover from the window, letting in the sunlight that devours the vampire, who cries out in agony and burns into a pile of ash covered by his own
Except,
smoking black garments.
It's ash, not the goo of the Wicked Witch of the West.
Burning into dust.
What a world! What a world!
And I like that this is the ending that DJ, goes with, because if we remember from our Nightly Neighbors episode, the trope of sunlight killing vampires was invented for the original Nosferatu film.
Boom.
And ultimately, Count Orlok is defeated by the sunrise, which is how I felt this morning at
I was about
6
to say,
a.m.
which was what happened to Christian today when he defeated these notes.
Felt defeated by the sunrise. Oh, Lord.
No, you defeated it.
I guess I did, didn't I?
Yeah, because we're all here right now.
Killing this episode. Right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
You're right. Right, guys?
Validation?
The Dora the Explorer moment. We haven't done one of those in a long time. We did that a lot early on.
Right, yeah.
When we didn't know how to, talk to the microphone.
And as Pete steps back out of the movie, we have what's supposed to be our happy ending.
Pete!
The kids are safe and Kristoff is alive.
What happened?
Thinking he's dreamed the whole thing.
Are you okay?
Yeah, what a dream.
But applauding and cheering from the audience is Dr. Vink, munching on popcorn.
Good show, lad.
Popcorn.
Kristoff's had a change of heart.
Look, Dr. Vink, I've been thinking. A deal's a deal. Forget what I said before. You can have your one night a week.
That won't be necessary. I've just purchased this theater.
You what?
Oh, yes. Now I can show my films every night. I've got many, many more that are far better than this one.
The evil powers of real estate holdings.
The end.
And back in the clearing around the campfire,
So who's going to
Frank
Fright Night?
wants to know who's going to Fright Night.
Me, I am.
Sign me up.
I raise my hand.
You, me, Gary, Frank.
Take me away.
You can have my tickets.
Kiki and David give up their tickets because, well, it's getting late and
Thought you weren't
they're
going
getting
to Fright
tired.
Night.
And I forgot
kidding?
how this
It's
one
just a
ended.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I got
But
there too
believe
fast.
you me, the joy I felt
Let's go.
when Gary got to go to Fright Night with Frank is something I didn't know I needed.
Gary
in my
needed
life.
to be there.
I felt like I was going to go too.
Me too.
I want to go. I wish any theater at all did this still today, and I want to start one.
I would open a theater with you.
We should buy the Crescent.
I that's what I was literally about to say. There's one for sale in our town. If I had any money,
Yeah, if we had any money. You
I
guys
would
want to give
do
us money
some
so we can
really
do this?
fun stuff with that theater.
Can you imagine what we would do with that theater?
We just got to call up Dr. Vink, I guess. He could buy it, and we'll just
I would let him.
manage it for him.
I'd let him do it.
We'll be the Christoph.
I'll
of
show
this
his movie
scenario.
one night a week.
Same. No
Draws
problem.
that kind of crowd? Yeah. Better believe it.
No problem.
And as we near our conclusion, speaking of Dr. Vink once more, I have a few thoughts on this man, thing, entity, person, character, creature. I think it's no happy accident that certain shots between Vink and the vampire were parallels. The reveal through the double doors, the creeping around corners, the ability to teleport, they both do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're supposed to feel like the vampire is Vink in disguise.
Okay.
Einhorn is Finkel, Finkel is Einhorn.
Or Vink is the vampire in disguise.
No, it's the opposite. Because at least I think you're entitled to your thoughts. But
I just thought it would be funny to imagine.
my takeaway is that Dr. Vink is a trickster spirit in human form. He's a master manipulator and illusionist.
A leprechaun.
Yeah, maybe. It helps that he's actually magic and immortal and is capable of shape-shifting at will. On the one hand, I love the idea of his monster movie monsters being so real that they actually are real. But on the other hand, I like to think that he is those monsters in disguise. Like, he was the vampire. He was the phantom cab driver. And if we want to go ahead and say that Vink was meant to be the carny in Laughing in the Dark, unofficially, then we can also say that Vink was Zebo.
Hey.
Because the idea there was that the carny was Zebo,
Yes.
right?
At least that's, yeah, it's kind of where we
And
landed with it.
Aaron Tager is credited as playing Zebo. So what is Dr. Vink? Maybe he's the Pied Piper. Maybe he's the devil. What's the difference? We may never really know what he is, but he seems to be all these things, and I love it.
And he seems to be a specialist in the theme of both of these first Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes, which is blurring the lines between reality and fiction.
You said it. My only question for you is, what's he going to do with this movie theater?
I was going to ask you what you think
I have
his
so many
plans are.
thoughts. I have so many thoughts.
Well, I guess he's just going to make a lot of money because he's apparently able to do that. He can bring in the crowds.
It's not money, though. That's my main thing. It's like,
He's not motivated by that.
no, he's not motivated by money.
Yeah.
What's in it for him? It has to be something other than money. And that
Hypnosis,
comes down to
mind control,
yes.
influence.
Right. See, these people are going to willingly come to this theater to be mesmerized night after night, right? Some level of hypnosis. But what's he getting in return? I think maybe it has something to do with feeding himself. If he's a supernatural entity, he has to eat something. And the fact that he seems to really enjoy playing with these people almost suggests that he's something like a cat that likes to play with its food first.
I'm cringing. You can't see it, but
And it's almost like
I'm cringing.
opening a theater is this genius idea to bring crowds of people to him willingly so that they can be transfixed and lost in something, giving him their time, their attention. Maybe he's feeding off of the time and attention, the energy, the enjoyment, the pleasure.
Hey,
Something that's
I relate.
bringing him life and like he's refueling in a way.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
hopefully he's not, like feeding off of their life energy or their souls, their
it's
life
just
force.
The attention, maybe. And for him to be, like you said, he has this flair for the dramatic.
Yes, he's very theatrical.
I don't mind if he's feeding off their attention so much.
Right. I think like each of these things are gimmicks of a way for him to sort of get something like that is essential to his existence that we aren't quite aware of or privy to necessarily, making him a much darker entity inside of the Are You Afraid of the Dark universe, which is why he can pop up multiple times in different scenarios and stories, wearing different hats, playing different roles, but always the same character, because he is something like a shapeshifter that is capable of doing that, always up to like a new gimmick or trick. Maybe in DJ's mind, he was the Pied Piper, and that was just an early example of his success. I don't know. But I think it paints him in a pretty dark light, and I'm excited to see him again. And I wish he was more involved in the series.
You do love a good Vink.
Vink's Revenge, Dr. Vink's Revenge.
Got Vink.
Or like a prequel. I think we've said before, a prequel.
We've talked
Dr.
about
Vink.
that. A prequel where we learn how he became.
God, that'd be so cool.
Vink.
The moment you've all been waiting for. The Scareometer.
Scareometer.
10 out of 10.
Wow, this is a 10 out of 10?
10 out of 10.
Have you done a 10 before? Did you do a 10 in season 1?
No, for sure not. I'm pretty sure I did a 9 out of 10 at some point.
Yeah, I think we both had 9s. I don't think I got a 10.
I think I didn't want to give whatever it was too much credit because I knew something like this episode was coming.
Was coming for you.
And there are others that are still 10s, but this is already up there for me. Just the whole...
This is a 10 out of 10.
What really, really, truly scared me about this episode is falling asleep while watching a movie and the monster in the movie taking notice that you fell asleep and then coming out of it to get you. I'm pretty sure I had nightmares about that.
Because you are a person who has comforted themselves with the notion that it's just a movie.
Yeah.
I'm safe out here. That's been a staple of your psyche and your adolescent psyche especially. That was a staple for you.
Right.
You've talked about seeing characters or scary things from movies, being afraid you were going to see them in life. Like that's also something that haunted you.
Right.
So it makes sense.
The movie's supposed to end, but it doesn't end. It keeps going.
Yep.
That's so scary to me.
Very eerie.
Why is that so scary to me?
Because it's supposed to be a very controlled
it's a loss
situation.
It's a loss of control.
That is off the rails completely.
Maybe that's it. I have no idea. What'd you give it?
I waffled back and forth a lot between a 7 and an 8.
Okay.
For me personally, it's more of an exciting episode and more of like the idea, like my imagination enjoys this. It isn't necessarily so afraid of it.
That's where I'm at as an adult. As a kid, 10 out of 10.
And I get that. And even as a kid though, for me, I think I already took it a step further where I was like, well, if that's possible, in a world where it's possible for things to come out of the TV screen,
right,
good things could come out too, or I could go in. Like I was already on a different path with it mentally.
Gotcha.
So it didn't really scare me that much even as a kid. But I will say the reason that it's getting a 7 or an 8 is that the visuals, because the special effects are so good, the visuals become even more frightening. They do take a lot more time with that suspense in this episode. They let you look at the monster, and normally I don't like that, but because it's Nosferatu, you already know what he looks like.
Right.
So the more time you get to look at him, the more disgusted you are.
Yeah.
It's
he
very
is pretty disgusting looking.
It's that otherworldly, this is not a human creature that I'm looking at. And I think we see just enough of them, to, like, it's the right amount. I think that there's the right amount of tension with that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself literally saying out loud, this is spooky. Like, I'm spooked. This is a spooky episode because it's done in a very classic horror way. And we know that those tricks all are the oldest tricks in the book for making humans feel fear.
Proven to make people nervous.
They're tried and true. They worked in the 30s and before, and they work now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as haunting as it is, I think that that's really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. It is really cool. So you went more of like a fantasy sci-fi route with it in your mind versus like a horrifying experience.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
I get
but
you.
don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. If I fell asleep in a theater or watching a movie at my house and I fell asleep and I dreamed or thought that something came out of the TV, I'd be freaked out.
Yeah,
I'd be very afraid.
You'd be searching your
I'm not
house
saying
with your
that I
machete.
wouldn't be afraid of that. I'm just saying that I went immediately to other applications.
Yeah, I get that. This is just one of like 3 or 4 Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes that I remember being tense.
Mm-hmm.
This is just the first of the few that I'm anticipating watching again. I don't know. It stuck with me. Let us know if it stuck with you guys and what you thought. A lot of people are telling us who know that we're covering this episode have said that this is one of their favorites and they've been very excited about it. So
it is definitely a classic.
Let us know if the Pied Piper background surprised you.
It surprised me. I can tell you that right now.
I was very thrilled to find it. I couldn't believe. I was like, based on the Pied Piper. I don't know.
Remember. The 26th of June.
26th of June, 1284.
Remember. The 26th of June. The music, the piper, the plot.
Hey.
When out of the city, the children, they wandered. And now under the city, they rot.
Hey! Yeah. Hell yeah.
Don't make me write poetry on the fly.
That was good.
That's not even what happened, but hey, it's something, you know?
You know what? There are so many theories. Maybe that's what happened.
One of them. In caves under the city, they rot.
Hey, there you go. All right. And on that note, I'll leave us with one thought.
Please do.
Another name for the Pied Piper is the Pan Piper.
Pan flute.
As in the pan flute that's said to have been created by Pan.
Mm-hmm.
Pan, as in Peter Pan. The ageless entity who plays a pan flute and coaxes children away to a land where they will never have to grow up.
Oof.
But we have much more pretty darkness to get to before we unlock those particular closet doors.
Oh, man. Yep. That's all up in my closet, let me tell you.
Just remember, kids, always pay the piper, or he may come back for something you're not prepared to give up. Sweet dreams, y'all.
Woof. Okay, well, yeah, that was fun. That was a great time. Thank you, Christian, for lessons in history and fantasy.
You're welcome.
We are grateful, as always.
Thanks for being here.
If you are especially grateful and feeling generous about it, you can join us on our Patreon at patreon.com/TPD podcast.
That's right.
Where you can contribute your hard-earned dollars to our hard-earned research.
We don't want your money. We don't want your friendship. Wait, yes, we do.
No. We want your money and your friendship. And your theater if you have one.
And also your theater.
We would take that too.
You know what? We'll do a freaking live show in your theater. Why not?
We will.
Why the hell not?
Let's do it.
Man, oh man. Yeah, what a good time.
Speaking of live shows, I didn't even say this up top. I just got to go and see the Pod Meets World live show in New Orleans this past week. It was.
How did you not tell me about this?
I don't know how I didn't tell you, but it was because I was supposed to go in November and it was rescheduled. So I went this past week.
So it was old news at this point.
And I posted it on so the Darklings know. You just don't watch our stories.
I keep my phone on focus mode because I can't focus if I don't. Like, I don't see anything anymore.
But I did get to go to that, and it was so super fun. And it's really exciting to me because we have become internet friends with the good folks over at Bram Meets World podcast.
Yeah.
And our Darkling friends that voted in our polls on our story when I was there talked about how they love Boy Meets World too. So I'm excited for some potential planning for some Boy Meets World darkness as well. So
heck yeah,
that was fun. You just triggered the memory when you said the live show in a theater.
That sounds great.
They're great. I love all things Boy Meets World, and we love the Bro Meets World guys. So that's out there. We're dreaming about it, and if we can ever get our shit together, we would love to spend some podcast time with them.
Just dreaming.
But back to our closing remarks. If you would like to vote in polls like this when we do weird stuff like go see Pod Meets World Live, you can follow us on our Instagram at That's Pretty Dark Podcast. Occasionally we'll post stuff on our TikTok at That's Pretty Dark.
Yo.
So join us on our socials if you want to be part of the darkness and you're not already.
Yeah, or email us at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com. Promise I'm going to get back to all of you just as soon as I can.
It's the age-old
It hasn't
promise.
been more than 6 months since I
But we
responded.
do read your emails even if we've not gotten back to you yet.
That's
and
also true.
You
We do read
just
them.
don't even understand how much we appreciate hearing from you and hearing your words, hearing about your lives and your stories. And, you know, we will get back to you. But even if it's not quickly, please know that we have read it and we are so grateful and honored that you share your thoughts with us about these pretty dark things.
You guys
Thank you.
constantly remind us that we're never really alone. And we couldn't be more appreciative.
It means a lot.
Thanks for listening, guys. Sweet dreams.
We'll be in your ears soon with something, dare I say, holy.
How holy is it? Is it a hole in the earth that swallows up children?
I don't know. Maybe ask Kissing Kate Barlow.
Dang. I saw her once in Disney World.
Oh.
I'll talk about it.
That's fun. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
This is going to be a fun summer.
Spooky summer. Summerween.
Stay cool this Summerween, Darklings, and we will see you soon.
Bye now.
Bye. Thanks for listening to That's Pretty Dark, written and produced by Christian Baxter Mott and Kaylin Andrews.
Our music is composed by Jonathan Simmons, and our art is provided by Paige Garland at Power Girl Illustration.
Join the collective nostalgia and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at That's Pretty Dark Podcast.
Share your experiences and let us know what shows, films, or villains still haunt you from childhood at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, you're never really alone.
So until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.
And I am not a nutmeg.